we inherited David Katz from Pat Thurston. I spoke with Pat the other night. She's over at KCBS now. She's not doing a talk show. She's just doing the news. But it's when he was on her show, I said, that's the best guest on KGO. Period. Full stop. And never did I think that he would be on our show as a regular, but he is the former assistant U.S. attorney with a perspective on all things in the legal machine as it relates to America. Here's David Katz, everybody. Hi, David.
Hi, great to be with you guys. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. So there's a lot going on, David. You know, the nation's attention is turned toward this congressional leadership question, and it strikes me that, you know, orphaned in all of this, as usual, are major issues that are affecting the country at the Supreme Court level. And I did the other day, I think yesterday, I sort of revisited the status of this Oath Keepers and Proud Boys case. They're trying to try them on seditious conspiracy charges. This is a pretty high bar, I know, for the government to actually clear. But I wonder what you're looking at.
Well, in the Oath Keepers case, they did have a jury conviction. The jury found guilty. The main Oath Keeper, Rhodes, the fellow with the eye patch, the lawyer or trained as a lawyer, defendant, he was convicted of seditious conspiracy. He'll face 20 years in federal prison, as well as he was convicted of other charges. I believe there was someone else convicted in that case also of seditious conspiracy. Then there's the case against the Proud Boys. So that's definitely moving along. Turning to the Supreme Court, what interested me is that the Biden administration did file a brief defending the loan, the student loan debt forgiveness, right? So that affects an awful lot of people, including, I'm sure, some of your listeners and viewers, that, you know, this student loan thing, even if it's only $10,000 or $20,000, that's awfully big. If it's your $10,000 or $20,000, that you're excused from repaying. And of course, we forgive all kinds of debts to all kinds of plutocrats, right, and corporations. So I certainly agree politically with the idea of excusing these $10,000 or $20,000 worth of debts. I think it depends a little bit what kind of debt you have, whether it's a Pell or it's something else. But anyway, the Biden administration is defending it in the Supreme Court. And I think there's a good chance. You know, the idea is, can the president alone stop collecting money for the government? You know, could the president say, in IRS cases, we're not going to collect from this class of people, or we're going to give everybody a $10,000 break, or half the people a $10,000 break on their federal tax bill? At some point, it becomes beyond the power of the president to do that by some statute. It's going to keep it with the Congress, whether Congress wants to collect money or not collect money, whether Congress wants to forgive debt or not forgive debt. And so that's what the legal issue is going to be. But I think, Mark, the whole country is talking about the Idaho case, and you have a guest, namely me, who's both defended someone charged with murder and convicted as a federal prosecutor, somebody of first-degree murder for killing the postal carrier while she was out on his route. So bring it on if you have questions about the Idaho killing in Coburg.
That really is a great surprise. I wasn't aware of your background there, and I know that in the case today, I mean, this just happened, the affidavit was released. And so they unsealed these documents, and there are sort of some interesting things associated with this, like his DNA that was discovered at the scene. They've got a preliminary hearing scheduled, I think, for the 12th now of this month. And I thought the other interesting detail, and then I'll let you speak, was that the cops stopped them, I believe, twice. This is his father, and he and his father were driving across the country. They stopped the two men in this car twice at the request of the FBI. The FBI was also tailing them. And when they stopped them, the cops, they had a brief interchange in which they asked, "What are you doing?" He said, the alleged murderer said, Brian Kohlberger, I guess his name is, we're just going to get some Chinese food, I think he said, or something along those lines, or Thai food, or something like that. And his father said, we're driving across country. So there was already, you know, they can't get their stories straight. And I'm wondering if the father despite the fact that he said there was nothing strange about his son and he acted normally, if the father on some level isn't complicit in some kind of cover-up. But those are the two pieces that kind of jumped out at me. It happened right before we went on the air today. What can you tell us about this case?
Well, let's take the last piece first. That was really interesting, and I guess now it's been confirmed that that was part of a joint effort by the FBI and by these local police officers to see what was going on with him. I thought that's an amazing coincidence that he got stopped. And it also is an amazing coincidence. I mean, this was a week or two after the whole nation had seen this white, Hyundai Elantra, right?
Right.
It's not that distinctive a car, but I mean, it's on every single TV station. You'd think that the police in Indiana would have seen it. You would have think they would have made more of a commotion, like to pull the guy over to ask him questions. And so the fact that they just kind of danced around it, Mark, made me think that it was part of a sting. It was part of a coordinated effort to stop him and see what he might say. I don't think he said anything incriminating, but they also had their cameras going. Somebody thought it was important that there was a bruise on his wrist. I haven't followed the case that closely, but apparently you could see that. It was that granular, the photos that they took. And then the fact that they stopped him twice, you wonder if you're sitting in the control room and you're the FBI thinking about this, you think, wow, the second stop, is this going to make the guy hinky? Is he going to maybe drop his dad off and go somewhere? Is he going to get rid of the Hyundai? But I think they had good enough surveillance on him that they were pretty clear that they were not going to lose him. I suspect they put something on that car, like a transponder, so they could follow that car wherever it went, just in case they lost him. We used to do that when I was an assistant U.S. attorney. That's kind of old-style technology, but it works. You put something on the car, and even before GPS and stuff like that, it told you back where the car was. So I think that was an interesting aspect of it. Now, Mark, his dad, I think it was, brought up something about, there was this terrible incident, but it was at WSU, and apparently at Washington State University, there had been a killing, but just one killing, and apparently with a gun, not with knives. So they never mentioned anything about this incident, which you could say is a little bit weird, too. I mean, given that he went to school so near there and this whole country was talking about it, and he was a criminologist, I'm sure they were hoping that he would say something about that. But it was staged. It was not an accidental thing. It was to stop him and have that conversation, and they stopped him twice. And apparently he didn't really get hinky about it. He didn't even dispose of the car. The idea being he's a criminologist, he would think, I might have left some DNA in the car. Why don't I get rid of the car? But the other thing that's astonishing.
By the way,
right
David, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want me to quickly pass this on. I think this is a point. He did change out license plates. You know what I mean? And he had deliberately switched them out after the murder. So, it's not as though you're so right. Like, why would you have the same car that's already been identified? It's in the public discourse that this is what they're looking for. And that this is, to anybody who saw this car that night type thing, he's still driving that car. He did change out the license plate. So his background in criminology, I mean, maybe he missed some classes, but it did seem as though he was trying to, address some degree of ID problem he might have, and yet he ignored the biggest one. But please go ahead.
I think he changed his license plate a few days after it happened, and it's before he and his dad got stopped twice in Indiana. And regarding the car is kind of an interesting thing, but I think, and one thing you'd certainly argue for the dad not being complicit, of the dad not being guilty, is he treated his dad, I think, like his dad didn't know. He has his dad come and pick him up. Their story is that this was a planned trip. It was his first semester at that school and away from the Northeast. And so he wanted his dad to come out, see America, drive him back. And they went ahead and did that. Now, if he suddenly gets rid of the car, he's got some explaining to do to his dad. Likewise, if he's staying at the parent's house and he suddenly wants to get rid of his car, that's when his dad or mom might put two and two together. Like, wait, I know there are 5,000 cars like that in America or more, but why does our son suddenly want to change his out? There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it. So
that's
I think
a great
he
point.
was kind
so
of
you think that's actually in a way exculpatory, or would suggest that there's no blame to go toward the. I maybe read too much in when I said that the dad might have been in on it or in on some cover up.
Well, I have a distaste, Mark, for these things because I was a commentator on Law and Crime and some other shows on the Petito case. You remember her? She was beautiful young woman out at the national park out west, right? And then she had an assailant. I think he ended up killing himself in the Everglades or something. But they
Right.
just about crucified the parents, and I thought it was way over the top. So I think everyone should take a deep breath. People are not likely to think that their child, I don't think he even has a criminal record. They're not likely to think that, their young man who's a graduate student, seems to be doing well in life, is a quadruple murderer. I don't think
Yeah.
they're going to jump to that conclusion. And
Fair
I think
enough.
that he played it off. He played it off like he certainly was not. Isn't that amazing? I have the same car. It's probably all he ever said to them. But you mentioned another interesting point about whoever was the murderer, it looks like, left this knife sheath behind. Huge mistake, right? If his DNA on the knife sheath that's left behind at the murder scene, and that DNA comes back to him because they went through his garbage at the Pennsylvania house, that's of course a devastating piece of evidence. I mean, and then it's a knife sheath. If it's a wrapper from a McDonald's, okay, he had a McDonald's with her. He knocked on the door. He had a bite with her. Somehow there was an argument. He left. It must have been whoever did it after he was there. But that his DNA is on a knife sheath found at the house, and it was a knife killing of 4 people, that's a very, very bad fact for the defense. He seems to have a very able public defender, and I think he's going to have a vigorous, competent defense. But that's a real bad fact, Mark.
Wow. So it sounds like with DNA at the scene, it becomes very difficult to skate at all on this. I mean, don't you think this, I hate to use the words, but open and shut? I mean, shouldn't this be a case that, and it's weird because they were very good about being quiet on this. So you had a sense that they didn't have any leads in this investigation. And then you learn, wow, they had more than leads in this investigation. They ID'd this guy. They knew who he was. Won't the court case be pretty straightforward as well, or?
I think the court case will be very straightforward. I mean, you always want to recognize that there are strange things that happen. That's why we have trials, right? And it may be that the affidavit was just released this morning. And so someone did swear under oath, but you're allowed to use hearsay and other things. So maybe I swear under oath that somebody told me that he believed that this test had been done. And, when they actually do the test, but, generally speaking, they're pretty good. I mean, DNA testing now has improved a lot, even over years ago. It's pretty strong. And again, if your DNA is someplace of somebody that well, that makes all the sense in the world. The other thing that hurts him a lot is supposedly, one's cell phone is one's tracker. These people who, I've had cases, I actually defended a murder case and I got the charges dismissed. But the biggest evidence that they had was that my client's phone had pinged off a pole about a half a mile from the murder scene. Now, it happened 2 years ago, Mark, before they figured out what was going on. And there was a lot of explanations for why, he lent the phone, his wife was using the phone. There's explanations for your phone pinging off something. But supposedly, his phone was in the vicinity of that house 12 times, which gives the idea, if he didn't have a relationship with one of those people, that he was stalking one of them, that he was obsessed with one of them, that he was a peeping Tom or something like that. That's also very, very bad. And then they have a witness, Mark, it turns out, who actually heard something. Now, why that person didn't call the police, and maybe they did. Maybe the police got there just a minute too late, to the scene. But, we've always thought that there were 2 roommates there who never woke up, and now they're alive, but they don't know anything. And the people who know something are, tragically, the 4 who are dead. But apparently there's a live witness who heard something, heard a male voice, saw something at the scene. That person was probably wise, or there'd be 5 people dead, so they didn't jump into the middle of the fray. They probably called the police. So it sounds like the police got there very soon after, obviously missed whoever the assailant was, but maybe only by minutes, Mark.
The question comes in, and we'll wrap up, but David Katz, such good thoughts and takes on this. Champagne Wishes says, if the guest, meaning you, David, were to represent the defendant, how and what would he focus on? That must be a hard question to ask, but it does give us, you have defended in murder cases before, as you just said.
Yes, there was very weak evidence against my client, as I say, was able to get the charge dismissed. But I think if you're going to be a lawyer and you're going to be a criminal defense attorney, you don't have to take any case. But if you do take a case, obviously you have to zealously defend it, within the bounds of ethics. But, you have to be in it to win it within the bounds of ethics. So if I were in this case, if I were the public defender in it, or I was retained by him or his family or something like that, if he can show some connection with those people, that would explain why articles of his were there at the scene. If he ends up having no connection with those people whatsoever, never met them, wasn't with any of them that night, wasn't let into the house, and then something weird happened, I just think it's very difficult to explain why your DNA is somewhere. And then it may be that he carried some of their DNA, even on his gloves or something like that, into the car. So that has yet to be done, I think, a thorough examination of the car, trying to find out what clothing he had that night. Again, those are all things that I think would cut against him. Certainly his family is smart to put out this story that the family's behind him, that they believe in him, try to show his side of the story. The court of public opinion is important too. But in the court itself, I think if they have this DNA and he has no connection with these folks, he's in very difficult shape. And then finally, if it's really overwhelming, we may be seeing a mental defense in this case. I don't know the law of diminished capacity or even of insanity in that case. Very, very hard to have an insanity defense in California, since we had the famous Twinkie defense
Right.
that was made 20, 25 years ago in Northern California, and the killing of those. I think one of them was Harvey Milk. I think one of them was the mayor, if it's the same incident. The councilman or city councilman who killed him made this Twinkie defense. He got a diminished capacity. Most states have made it much harder to be found not guilty, or to be found guilty of a lesser charge on account of diminished capacity. But there may be some sort of manslaughter thing here, very hard to imagine with 4 victims. Let's assume for 1 second he didn't premeditate as to the first person he killed. The prosecution is going to argue that he formed premeditation before he killed the second, the third, and certainly before he killed the 4th person. He had ample time and did premeditate. So it looks like a first-degree murder case, but it's not impossible there'd be some kind of diminished capacity or diminished actuality as a defense ultimately.
He is going to be in real trouble. I mean, as you say, there's a trail of DNA evidence and stalking evidence, and
what he's got going here is a situation.
He's got a situation on his hands for sure. David, thank you. Fascinating. I didn't even expect that we'd have this treasure trove of information about this case. It's so interesting. We do Mark's Murder Mystery Mondays in Idaho, and this murder case has really been the centerpiece the last couple of weeks. So to have you weigh in on it, really, really cool. Thank you, my friend, and we look forward to next week.
Well, thank you very much. I try to be a Renaissance lawyer, right? Not just do the U.S. Supreme Court, not just do those kind of intellectual cases, which are so fascinating, but I mean, let's face it, a murder case. I actually started out being an OJ commentator in the media. That's what I did back on.
I'd love to visit that.
9,
yeah.
KCAL 9, OJ Tonight. That was how I got started being a media commentator.
Well, at least OJ gives us something to the positive. Thank you, David Katz. David Katz, everybody. Good stuff. Love my David Katz.